there's a lot of different opportunities in franchising, and most of them you've never heard of, which are honestly the best ones.
Right.
If you're looking at a $McDonald's and you're looking at, a couple $1 million investment to make, $100,000 a year, not a great ROI at this point, and there's nothing available. So it's finding the ones that, have a good, maybe they've started a good track record, or they have something very unique that that they're offering, and then they have a lot of open space available.
Cail Morrison, what's up, buddy?
What is happening, sir? How are you?
Good to have you in town. I haven't seen you in a while.
I know, it's been a while.
You've been busy.
I have been.
Since you have your phone open, because I asked you to bring a dad joke, and I feel like you're dying to tell it. Why don't you go ahead?
All right. So my girlfriend broke up with me when she found out I only had 9 toes. She was lactose intolerant.
I've actually seen that one, but it was so bad I chose not to use it. I've already.
It was my comedic timing.
I've literally already forgotten mine.
Should I do my did you know then too?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So, did you know that dolphins sleep with one eye open, and so their left eye's open, their right side of their brain is working to breathe and to watch for danger.
So what's the left eye doing?
Then they switch. It switches.
No kidding.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
Wild. I
was excited about that one.
I was in Mexico a few weeks ago, and I did a dolphin excursion thing, and I was like, this is going to be so cheesy, right? It's just like one of those touristy things, but I had never done it.
Yeah.
Dude, it was amazing.
Was it?
Yeah. It was
awesome.
Basically you're in Mexico, so they kind of do what they want, but there's this giant, probably like the size of 6 football fields, fenced off area in the ocean, right?
That's awesome.
And so it started out with you can pet them. They swim by. They swim by really fast. You just put your hands out, it slides over them. It's really cool. But then you swim way out into the middle. They had 4 people in my group. There was a lady, a little kid, a lady, and then me. And so you swim out to the middle, and they're just put your hands out like hooks if you guys are listening. And the dolphins are in front of her, and they're up. And she'll do something, and they turn in circles, and then she gives them a signal, and they leap out of the water upside down and disappear. And you're just sitting there, and you're probably 50 yards from the thing, and you're like, it's actually kind of creepy. And then all of a sudden, boom, and they slide up under and put their fins in your hands, and you just grab them, and they haul, right? So I was like, well, that's cool. The next one is you go out there, you lie on your stomach, and you keep your legs straight. She's like, do not bend your legs. Keep them locked, which is so counterintuitive.
Yeah.
And keep your feet flat. So dorsiflex your ankles up so your feet are flat.
Yep.
So you're lying on your stomach, right? Keep your arms up like this, they say. And keep your arms out. And so then the same thing. The dolphins are away. You can barely see them. She whistles. They jump out of the water and disappear. And you're just lying there And they come behind you and put their snouts on the bottoms of your feet.
Yep.
They start pushing you. And when you get enough momentum, they come underneath you and you're standing all the way out of the water. And they did it for a 4-year-old girl.
Yeah.
Brave to swim out there by herself.
Yeah.
Right? But I was like, they're going to shoot her to the moon, right?
Yep.
And then they did it with me, and I'm 225, and both of us were the same. So they know all the gauges, and remember your legs are straight, so they have to communicate on balancing you. You're not doing anything, and so that means back and forth and side to side. I'm like, all right, dude, I was blown away. I know I'm like a child, but I was like, this is amazing.
I'd love to do something like that, but did you know that I've been professionally rescued out of the water 2 times? I can't swim.
No, that's not even that surprising. Actually, I don't know why. I don't know why that's not more surprising. Can you not swim at all?
I can't swim at all. No.
Why?
Because I don't know. Because I'm just born that way.
You can't jump in a pool and get out?
Yeah, I mean, because it's I can get from here to there.
If I dropped you in the ocean, you would struggle to tread water.
For sure. Yeah. So it's scary out there.
Did you know?
Yeah.
Cail Morrison can't swim.
2 did you knows and 1 dad joke.
I got a dad joke for you.
Welcome to my world.
Did you hear that the Hulk started recycling?
No.
He's really going green.
Yes. Very nice.
Yes.
Very nice.
We're never going to get this thing started. So,
all right.
Anyway, for those of you guys that don't know Cail and why he's on the podcast, I'm going to let him give a little bit of his background. So it's pretty extensive, but give our listeners an idea of your professional background. You've been in and out of franchising, fitness, and everything. So let us have it.
Yeah. Well, I was born in a small town in southern Minnesota. No, I'm just kidding. I won't go that far.
Go for it.
You know, my background, you know, fairly unique, and I probably come from a lot of failures, right? Like I think that's something that's important. I wasn't that good in school. I probably partied a little bit too much in college, and I had to kind of do things over. And what it really came down to is I found out what I really loved, which was fitness, anatomy, physiology,
and
all of that.
You had played sports, so you wrestled and all kinds of stuff, right?
Yeah. I played sports in high school and college, and it just I never really came to me that, you know, what am I actually good at? What do I actually like? Because I wasn't really good at the traditional stuff. So I got my kinesiology degree, and then I really want to be a strength and conditioning coach. So essentially went into that, went to start to get my master's, and just realized that, you know, while I love strength and conditioning, I worked with collegiate level teams. I worked for the Kansas City Chiefs. I did, you know, and when I say worked, like I pretty much worked for free right at that point. And that's where I really realized that path was going to be a long path, and it's going to be a lot of, you know, more schooling, and it's going to be a lot of dedicated time, and it just wasn't the right path for me. So I actually started just personal training, which was great, and I did that for a couple of years alongside of bartending. And, you know, honestly, you know, coming from my background, I didn't really know. I didn't think I was very smart, you know. So I thought, I'm gonna, you know, I don't know, I'll just do whatever I can to make money. And things changed when I took a job at a hockey store. So, and to tell you how I got there, as I was personal training, doing very well, so I liked that. But it was, you know, I was basically, you know, told one day, like, hey, go talk to that person and sell them something, you know. And I was like, well, but here's what I do: is I you know, help people understand, you know, certain movements, what they're not doing well. I get to know them a little. And no. Just go over there and sell that person personal training. You know what I mean? And I was just like, that's not really what I'm about, you know? And so I quit there, and I was just like, maybe this isn't the right thing for me. So I took a job at a hockey store called Hockey Giant. And Hockey Giant, I learned business. And so I started as a $12 an hour, you know, stock and shelves guy. Right. And then within 6 months, I was running that location, and I actually converted that location into the distribution center for all of their online ordering. So,
cool.
So it was kind of a cool thing. So I tell that story because that's when I realized that, you know, while I love sports and fitness, business was something that I really enjoyed doing. And
which is interesting if you think about, like, if you had asked you in college, would you be good at business? You would probably have equated it to education and said, no, I would be terrible at business. Which is
absolutely. Not true. Yeah, because it kind of felt like it was the things that I probably wasn't good at. But the reality was I was good with working with people. I was able to get them to do the things that we needed the business to do in order to be successful. And we ended up opening 2 more locations in Minnesota, along with being the central hub for all the shipping in the world. So I took that experience, and then ended up winding my way over to Anytime Fitness, which is really where I truly feel like I grew up in business and in fitness, right? And so
when you got to Anytime, obviously everyone knows the giant that they are now. How many locations did you guys have open?
Yeah, so there's about 150 locations. I think I was employee number 27 there, and we had just moved from like the backside of a 7-Eleven to an actual office, which still wasn't that big, but I mean, it was much, much bigger than what there was before. So I got there, it was about 150, and, you know, long story short is when I left, there was 4,040 countries. So that's the kind of breadth of experience that I was able to get there. And what was cool about that experience is, you know, the leadership there, Chuck and Dave, and you know them well, dudes, they sort of, and they'll admit this too, right? Like at the time, you know, none of us really knew what we're doing. And that's kind of, you know, traditionally what happens in business, right? Like nobody really knows what they're doing until they do the things, and then they figure it out, or they make a mistake and then they do it better. And, you know, I was started in the support department. So I was a franchise business consultant, and I was doing well, and everything was going well, created some dashboards and some metrics and things like that. And I remember the day that I said, after we were, you know, drawing designs on a napkin and then faxing it to the contractors to, you know, build the space out, I'm like, hey guys, like, we should probably do something a little bit more sophisticated. Like we should, and they're like, yeah, we probably should figure it out, And so I had to figure it out. I had to hire, a CAD drawing person. I had to hire leadership in that space because I didn't know anything about design and construction and all that. And so what that ended up being was I ended up having the opportunity to do that about 9 times in different departments. So training department, support department, construction department, personal training department, which led me to you, right? And a number of other different areas. And so it was a unique experience that I probably was in the right time at the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
With the right people that were able to sort of nurture some of my skills and give me a ton of great experience.
Yeah. And you you obviously had to figure out as you go, but knowing you, that part's not surprising, right?
Yeah. Figuring things out.
I would have thought you had a business background.
Yeah.
Because I know you as a very savvy businessman, right?
Sure.
So when I hear that you were like exercise physiology and strength coach, I was like, oh, and not that those skills aren't always the same though. Yeah. So I'm like, I didn't know that. I would have thought you had a business background.
Yeah.
Because I've seen you run spreadsheets and get on the whiteboard and just do wizardry. And I'm like, man, this guy's really sharp,
So funny, there's probably a digression here, but my son we found out he's dyslexic.
Okay.
And so, we wanted to learn about dyslexia, and there's a book called The Dyslexic Advantage. And it talks about the actual advantages that dyslexic people have. And then one of the things that they say is to show your child that all the people that had dyslexia that are wildly successful.
Right.
Albert Einstein was
about to say,
dyslexic.
you got any names? I didn't know Einstein.
Yeah. Albert Einstein was dyslexic. And so the reality with the dyslexia is that and don't want to compare it to autism, but I mean, you have trouble doing certain things a certain way, but you have the ability to think outside of the box and do things differently. And sometimes it's for efficiency reasons because you don't do this thing that you're supposed to do very well. It takes you 3 times as long to do this thing. So you find a different way to do it. And then you get really, really good at that. So for me, it was spreadsheets, and I like a savant with spreadsheets because that's the way I work. So I felt like I learned a lot from my experience with my son and reading some of this information because I feel like I have a little bit of dyslexia, and that has sort of helped me create solutions that maybe weren't as traditional or maybe a little outside of the box that sort of set me apart from other people. So.
Yeah.
So interesting
really
side.
Cool. But it's interesting. Well, no, it's really cool that you got to essentially you're being paid well, and I'm sure you're this swingman that can do all these things. And anytime there's a department that needs processor systems, Cail, build that, you know, and you were able to do it. But like in hindsight, that's a real gift.
And
the opportunity to do that.
And I think, that logistics opportunity that I had at Hockey Giant, I love going step by step by step. The movie The Founder.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like I love that step by step, writing down every step and which direction could it go and what's the solution for each of those directions. Right. You know what I mean? So, spreadsheets, operations,
hence the 7 different performers you've built for Alloy.
Right.
I love it. You're like, you can see them if you want. I'm like, yeah, send those over. I know your work. It's going to be very detailed.
Yeah.
But and that's how, for anybody listening, that's how Cail and I met is we were working with independent Anytime Fitness owners as Alloy, just contracting with them directly. And then Bobby Hines, who's a friend of both of ours, was tasked for corporate to help with PT programming. And we had licensed his club because he had come to a NSCA event or something, or maybe a Thomas Plummer event. I don't remember that we were doing. And we connected, and we spent 5 years with you guys. So I got to know you guys really well. So that's where we met. Now, obviously, you'd been at Anytime a long time. But you moved on from there. So what happened after Anytime? And how long were you at Anytime time-wise?
So I was there for about 11 and a half years.
Okay.
So again, from about 150 locations to 4,000. I helped open India, internationally. So it was a pretty cool experience. And I always give a lot of credit to those guys helping me grow up in the world. Sorry, I've got a bug.
Getting attacked by a fly.
Yeah.
Right.
But so it was a great experience. So about 11 to 12 years there. And then, I thought, I want to do more. but I don't know what that is. And I was fortunate to interview with a brand called Camp Bow Wow, dog daycare and boarding franchise. Right. And it was a very interesting experience. I love animals. Didn't have any experience in this space, but really had that breadth of experience in all the different departments in franchising. And they were at a pretty critical stage of, I think they were at about 80 locations. And my year and a half there, we pulled them over 100. And so, that benchmark is on your radar too. So it was a very cool experience there. And I learned a ton, much more expensive franchise, a little bit more complex with the employees, complex design, bigger locations, all that stuff. So, but what I learned is that franchising's sort of the same.
Yeah. I always say that, like, I'm good at the fitness business.
Yep.
But even the reason we partnered with like a Repum is you get all this bandwidth because it's like a franchise sales system. Nothing I've ever done before.
Right.
I can help clubs be operationally successful in their market. Mm-hmm. That's like, we'll get to you being an Alloy franchisee. That's what I would be concerned about if I was you.
Yeah.
But like for me, I'm like, well, there's this whole other business and it doesn't matter if I'm franchising, again, doggy daycare or fitness. There's so many mechanisms that are similar, right?
Yeah. I mean, when I got in there, you identify the things that are the challenges and it's very similar. And, you want the ability to open in less than 12 months from the time of franchise agreement signing, right? Right. They were a little bit over 12 months. Okay. Well, how do we reduce that? Yep. Lowering the cost of investment. 1.5 million, you want to get that under 1 million, you want to focus on, rate of return. So does it take you how many months or years to break even from a cash flow standpoint and then get your ROI from, an investment standpoint. Yeah. So it's all the same things that you would do in any other business. I just looked at it as different widgets then all of a sudden, Yep. And so I think, that's where, franchising really became the thing, right? It was, and I had some experience, we brought in Waxing the City under the SE Brands, space, and we're looking at Basecamp Fitness at the time. So I started to learn like, oh man, all of this stuff, it's all very similar. So then my career sort of, the door opened wide open because I'm going, well, franchising is my expertise, not just fitness.
Exactly.
So it was very interesting, that experience.
How long did you spend there?
Just about a year and a half.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you got them over 100?
Yep. Yeah, we got over 100, made some adjustments, did a design change, all the things that every single franchise goes through. Yep. It just happened to be in dog daycare and boarding. So it was very cool.
Was it subscription based like fitness?
Some of it was, yeah. I mean, there was, you had daycare side of things where you would have recurring revenue due to, 2 times or 3 times a week that their dog would come and stay, for the day. And then of course that led to the boarding side of things where they would go on a vacation and then you're the trusted resource for.
So you had both subscriction based revenue and.
Yep. And then there was grooming and there was retail and there was training and things like that kind of comes with everything, but it was mostly, you kind of started with the daycare, then you went to the boarding, then you went to the training and the grooming and, all that good stuff.
And you were CEO there, right?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So,
cool.
So I led that team for about a year and a half. It was super great experience for sure.
Awesome. Yeah. So that put you in Denver where you've always wanted to be because you're super outdoorsy and active and all the things. So you're in Denver now. Why? What did you do after Camp Bow Wow?
So I was a member of Stronger You Nutrition.
So you were just it's an online.
Yep.
Online nutrition
coaching company.
Okay. So you were a member.
Yeah. So I was a member and I developed a pretty good relationship with the founder, Mike Dola. Yep. And, really unique guy. He has a lot of unique characteristics that I think, a lot of people dismiss when they see success. You know what I mean?
Right.
And he had these really unique attributes. And one of them was, literally the guy cares more than anybody I've ever met in my life, So I was a member there and, they always encouraged us to, post our progress pictures and do things like that in their private Facebook group. So I did one day and he reached out to me and he said, dude, you're doing awesome. Congrats. And it was just a really sincere reach out. And that's what really sparked our, relationship. And, I reached out to him at one point and I said, hey, what's your long-term goals? Like, what are you trying to accomplish here? And, and is there an opportunity for me to help? I love what you do. I'm in the cult. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid.
Yeah, I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. Like I think I'm a good advocate for you. And, I was bringing in some referrals from my Anytime Fitness, kind of circle. And, I think at one point I was bringing in more referrals than anybody, in the system. So we started talking and I interviewed a couple times and he's like, yeah, I don't think it's the right time, and then he brought me back one time just for a brainstorm session. He's just like, hey, if I flew you out, would you sit down with me and my COO and just do a brainstorm session? We're talking about doing recurring revenue. We're talking about doing this and doing that and systems and processes and, customer service, which was really big for him. And he knew I had John DeJulius experience and things like that. So anyway, I went out there and at the end of that, they're just like, hey, listen, we'd like you to come on board. And we ended up developing a partnership in the business and then we just worked to growing that. And that was I think that was in late 2019.
Good time for online nutrition.
Well, yeah, I mean, did
COVID affect your business at all?
Yeah, I mean,
positively?
Yes.
Anything online or platform wise, it seemed to really grow during that time.
It did. It was a very scary time initially because everybody, clenched their wallets very tightly.
Of course,
right off the bat. But Mike brought things out of us that I don't think that anybody else could bring out of us. Like I remember one of the things, we just sat down, okay, let's brainstorm the ideas that we have. And most people would lean on marketing or social media or whatever the heck it is. And his brain works more like, where are the pain points for our members right now?
Right.
And so one of the ideas,
friction down, whatever that is. Yeah.
So one of the ideas we had was, at noon, we were going to read books live to kids to take the pressure off the parents that are, now working, teaching their kids, trying to do their nutrition coaching, trying to do all this other stuff, right?
So freaking cool.
I literally sat on a live Facebook feed and read books to kids for an hour, like a couple times a week.
And everybody took their turns in the company?
No, I just did it.
Oh, you did?
That was just, one of the, we had a list of, a dozen things and Mike Alessi took a couple things. Mike Nola took a couple things. I took a couple things and we just divided and conquered by doing those type of things. And Mike taught me that, you really do have to think outside of the box to really understand like how you can help. And then by doing the things that don't actually have an immediate
ROI
benefit to you, right? That causes long-term rippling and can help you grow the business down the road. And I think, the little things that we did like that, and that's just one example, really catapulted us during that time when it was kind of the perfect storm. So then we grew really well during the pandemic, and when everybody was off, they couldn't go to the gym. They were looking for solutions, people were drinking more, they were eating more, it was all that stuff. And they needed a solution because they, were frankly, trying to figure out what in the heck they were going to do, So, and how long was this going to last, So yeah, it definitely was an exciting, it was scary. It was really fast paced and it was, ultimately long-term. It was great for us. So yeah.
Awesome. So, all right. So you moved there, you've grew Camp Bow Wow, got back to your passion, which was fitness and nutrition.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Grew nutrition.
Yep.
And then I think this is kind of funny. So you returned home, so to speak.
Yeah.
So, right. You purchased then back.
Yeah.
Or that company was purchased by Self-Esteem Brands, which essentially for anyone listening that doesn't know, that's like the overreaching company that is basically Anytime Fitness, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So really cool. When I started, I wasn't even an employee at Stronger You yet, but Chuck and David always said, hey, we need a nutrition solution. And they had approached a couple different, Precision Nutrition. They had approached a couple different entities.
Them to him. Yeah.
Yeah. And it didn't work out for whatever reason. And so I just reached out and I said, hey, do you guys, are you guys interested in meeting Mike? I've developed a pretty good relationship with him. Should we, connect the two? We ended up going out to dinner and had a great conversation. Nothing came of it, immediately, but, over time, again, just the relationship built. And I think a couple years later, because I think that was in 2019-ish, before pandemic happened, that the introduction was made. And then it was a series of, 3 or 4 conversations over, 2 years because I think that transaction happened in 2021.
You guys were still, well, you had grown, so that was good.
Yeah. So we grew to, I think, over 6,000 members. So it was a pretty big business. We had 75, 80 coaches and 6,000 members, something like that. So
awesome.
So it was it did really well. And but that introduction, kind of nurtured over time. And then it was, after things were opening back up and things like that, that's when Self-Esteem Brands thought it was a good opportunity to take.
So that pulled you back home now.
Yeah.
Obviously, you had spent 11 and a half years there, great experience, but you weren't really keen to go back to the same. Like, it was kind of like going back, right, for you.
Yeah,
and so you chose then to move on and find something else,
well,
right?
I stayed for 18 months.
Oh, I didn't realize it was that long.
Yeah,
Okay.
I stayed for 18 months afterwards. I was actually, pretty excited. It was kind of a homecoming. You know what I mean? It was like you kind of feel like you're going back to the hometown and you've done great things and you kind of came back and you're just like, hey, and you're back underneath that umbrella. But, ultimately, I think that it wasn't the right place for me necessarily. Right. But I wanted to, ultimately I wanted Stronger You to be successful. It was in my veins, and I bled purple and orange. At that point, and so coming back there, wanting to do the right thing for both brands, I stayed for 18 months before I decided that I wanted to take the next step.
Right.
So
and through our friendship, so the next step would be what you're doing now, right? So one of those is Alloy Franchisee.
Yep.
So let's maybe start with that as transition. So super impressive background. And obviously we've been friends for a long time as well. Just awesome guy. But I'm really honored to have you here just based on your professional background. Sure. It's like, geez, for you to spend your hard-earned money on our brand with that deep knowledge is like, I'll brag about you all the time. It's a bragging point for me, but you're involved in that. But so, why Alloy? Why would you choose to invest your money in Alloy when you have this view of both franchising and fitness nutrition? So what was compelling about it to you?
Well, I think first to kind of right back at you, right? Like, we're good friends. I've got a lot of trust in you. You've been in the industry for a long time. You're well respected, and you've got a ton of experience. And sometimes that experience is, you've told me about the mistakes that you've made, and the things that you've learned from that. And so it's comforting when somebody's done something for 32 years and has honed in on something and has finally decided this is the thing that I want to launch. You know what I mean? It wasn't something like, I have this idea, I'm going to spin it up really quick and then I'm going to try to, quick duplicate it.
And there's a lot of that in franchising, right? You spin up an idea or a piece of technology and you take it, you get VC money, you go hot, you sell a bunch, and then who knows what happens later, right?
And a lot of times that's very successful too. But for me, it's more comforting to know that one, hey, it's a person that I trust. Two, it's a person with a ton of experience and made a lot of mistakes along the way. And so I feel like that creates a model that is much safer than it would have been if you would have created this 30 years ago. Because God knows what that would have looked like. It would have been a lot of stringer tank tops and neon colors, bands. Probably.
Fanny packs. Sorry for those down under. Bum bag for you guys. I can remember I was doing a talk in Australia, a keynote at a Philex, which is like their Ursa. Yeah. Even bigger because it's like, Southeast Asia comes down and everything. And I kept saying fanny pack, and everyone was snickering. I'm like, what's the big deal? Everybody wore these in the 90s, right? And everybody like, fanny means vagina. I'm like, bum bag. Dang. My bad.
Yep.
All right. So Alloy, right? Yep. And so you've made this transition from essentially like the franchisor side to the franchisee side. So what is that? Before we do that, you're also doing something else. In that process, while you're opening Alloy, you also became a franchise consultant, right? Yep. So, and I'll just speak to these guys. The guy who's created this organization, everything he's touched thus far has turned to gold. He's a really sharp guy. Yeah. He had a franchise that he exited. Then he created an FSO, which is a franchise sales organization that they sold. He exited that. And then he started a franchise consulting firm. Yep. And from all indications, early innings, he's really doing it well, man. This guy, I don't know. He just seems like a really sharp guy. He's also very humble, which also he tells you someone's smart when he asks more questions than he talks. You know? So I think it's, I don't know, all from where I sit, and I'm involved in all of the consulting networks as a participant, as a franchisor. You guys have something special there, and I'll brag on you. So again, you step into this, which I know you have a lot of experience in franchising, but this is a very unique role. So like there's lots of facets to franchising, right?
Yeah.
So this is a skill set still that you had to develop. You have to you have to take somebody who's in this fear, worrier loop and walk them through a process and match them to what they feel like is a good franchise opportunity.
Yeah, right.
And, again, you're the top guy there now. So it's like,
yeah, I mean, just go back, Franchise Sidekick created by Ryan Zink and like to
I didn't
talk
even
about,
say his name. I was just bragging about it.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, Ryan.
Should I not?
Props to you. No, of course you should. I just didn't say it.
I think he's I think one of my coworkers said this the best. He's a great collector of people.
Yeah.
And he brings the right people along with him, and that's what he continues to do well. Obviously he's a great leader, so he helps us, gives us the direction and things like that. And he brought on the right chief development officer, he brought on the right COO, and he seems to be bringing on the right people to build his business for him. And frankly, I'm just grateful that I am somebody that he picked, right? But I had never.
Well, obviously, you made a good decision if you're perforing the way you are.
Well, I had never been in sales before. I've been in operations, and I remember, a mentor of mine told me like the one thing that you haven't done is sales, and if you did sales, that would round out what everything that you've done. And I thought about that a lot as, honestly, I just saw it online. I saw Ryan and I saw this thing that he was putting together, and it really was intriguing to me. So I reached out to him, and what's great about Ryan is I reached out to him and just said, hey, I'd love to chat sometime about what you're doing and how it's going, and immediately he's like, yeah, let's get on a Zoom call tomorrow.
Right.
It was immediate. And so it was great. So we had a great conversation, but yeah, I mean, I think I approach the sales side of the franchising sales side of things, just like I do with fitness. It's a servant mentality. Like you have a problem or you are looking to reach a goal, and my job is just to help you find the solution or reach that goal, Right. And so I just approach it in a way of, curiosity and understanding what they're trying to do, what their goals are, what they don't like. I mean, a lot of people get into franchising because they see an ad pop up on their Facebook, and they go down a path, and they either realize, or they either, execute and they move forward with it, and it's maybe not the right thing because they only looked at one thing, or they decide it's not for them, and then they think that franchising's not for them. So having the ability to be able to go, hey, okay, I hear all the things that you're looking for. Here are 5 brands, 6 brands that I think might be a good fit for you.
You start with like, what do you want the day in the life of to look like? Do you want to be super involved or not?
What type of employees are you looking for?
Employment structure.
Because most people just don't know what's all out there, and they don't even understand that, franchising is not just brick and mortar fitness and food, right? Like, and that's...
Well, I think everyone thinks food first, right? Like McDonald's, and then fitness is pretty well known, in franchising. But after that, I tell you that, like, getting into franchising, I was shocked because I go to the franchise. There's franchisings for consulting firms, from septic tanks, gutters, fences.
Good friend of mine has a charity franchise where basically you are trying to raise money for your school or for an organization. And
I saw one that was like it was like a fundraiser for, but it was for like sports programs.
Right.
But it's a franchise on how to pair up with high schools and colleges to help them raise money.
That's right.
So anyway, there's a million different kind of franchises, which I find really interesting. Right.
It's fascinating. And that's where, like that aha moment I had at Camp Bow Wow just turned into, listen, like, there's a lot of different opportunities in franchising, and most of them you've never heard of, which are honestly the best ones.
Right.
If you're looking at a McDonald's and you're looking at, a couple $1 million investment to make, $100,000 a year, not a great ROI at this point, and there's nothing available. So it's finding the ones that, have a good, maybe they've started a good track record, or they have something very unique that they're offering, and then they have a lot of open space available, right? Which honestly is one of the a lot of the factors that
Yeah,
Alloy
you got.
has,
You've got like every time I mention because you're Denver, obviously,
Yeah.
and every time I mention Castle Rock, everyone's like, "Oh, that's the one. That's the one." And you have that one, which is great, right?
Yeah, Highlands Ranch,
I wanted
Castle
that
Rock.
one. I wanted that
Yeah,
one. So
for
anyway,
sure.
you got the pick, which is good.
Yeah.
So what does it feel like now that you're both in Franchise Sidekick and with Alloy? You're now on the other side of the fence, right?
Yeah.
So we were joking about that earlier because you're like, all right, I'm going to be that guy.
Yeah.
Because you used to be the franchisor, right?
Yeah.
And you come to us and you've got feedback and things that you'd like to see happen and requests, and we're saying no and we're laughing about it or yes, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But what does it feel like to be, even from a risk standpoint, what does it feel like to be on the other side?
Yeah, I think it's well, it's interesting because I can see all sides. You know what I mean? And a lot of times I have to pull myself back and go, well, when I left Anytime Fitness, for example, there was 4,000 locations. We had, custom technology. We had, all the support systems. We had, 250 employees, all that stuff. And so a lot of times in my head, I'm going, well, why doesn't this work this way? And I think back and I'm like, I didn't even start there until they had 150.
Right.
We're at 50 here at Alloy, And so, it's always humbling because I always have to put myself in the right place before I give feedback. So I have to, tell you like, hey, listen, I know you're in a situation where you're not quite here yet, but here are some of my pain points, and
that's part of the value in having someone like you in the franchise is the feedback is coming from a place of knowledge, right? Not just emotions only, right? Some emotions, if we're honest, you cried a little bit, but that was fine.
For sure.
Slapped you around, told you suck it up. But all kidding aside, it's good feedback, right?
Yeah, for sure. And that's what's really interesting is that I don't think it ever gets, it always is scary. You know what I mean?
Always. Like, are you surprised at the fear that you have based on how, like, from where I sit, I've only been an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
I've never had a job. I'm air quoting.
Yep.
It doesn't feel like a job. So, like, when I see someone else being fearful of entrepreneurship, it's just interesting to me. I'll tell you a quick story about that because it's a great story as well. We have a guy out of DC and he has 3 locations and he works in Washington somewhere, some of the most expensive zip codes in the country, right? Mm-hmm. So he's kind of a quiet guy, very methodical, smart guy. And he has 3 alloys and he comes to training, I think a month ago or 2 months ago now, and goes back and just crushes his pre-sale. So his pre-sale's not over, but he's been pre-selling for like 5 weeks. He's had his month of VIP workouts. He's crossed the threshold that we want him to be at, which is 70. It was already 85 in like 5 weeks.
Yeah, nice.
So and he's like, everything's really working, right? And so he's on the phone with one of our franchise business coaches, Adam, who's been on the podcast. And he basically tells him, hey, his name's Kevin. He's doing great. And he's like, hey, Kevin, like you can go ahead and start billing if you want. Like you're way ahead of schedule.
Yeah.
And it's funny because he's a pretty stoic guy. And I'm sure he wouldn't mind me saying this. It's like he kind of pauses for a minute and then he gets a little bit choked up, which is not in his character. He's a stoic guy. He's very smart. Yeah. And he's like, he admits at that point, like I was really nervous. Like this scares the shit out of me, right? Mm-hmm. But like I can see it now, right? And I think I can get out of my corporate job. Like once I get my second one open, if I can do it like I'm doing this one. And of course, we're like, hey, pump the brakes. You're only halfway through your first pre-sale. But at the same time, like this is more about his manifestation. Like he can see it right in front of him. And he's so moved by the fact that like it's almost like a relief that not that it's all going to work out and be smooth sailing, but that he has the conviction that he can do it. And I'm like, that's why we do it, dude. That's why you do franchise consulting as well. It's like both sides of it. So it's interesting. There's that fear there. So have you been able to mitigate that by having been on the other side of it?
Yeah. I mean, so it's interesting because the fear doesn't stop, but knowing that you just have to, my wife and I talk about this all the time. It's just like, you just have to do the next thing. Just do the next thing. Like,
well, we talked about this before, right? How do you eat an elephant one bite at a time?
Right.
And you can't look at the breadth of all the things that could happen or that you need to do, or right.
Yeah. I mean, we were in a place to hire 2 people and they turned away. Right. We were, like it was very hard. It was scary to hire people, right? Like even that you're like nervous. You're just like, oh my God, are they going to be a good fit? Are they going to help me grow my business? All that stuff. And then all of a sudden, but then you have nothing and you're like,
panicking.
Oh crap, you know? But then, and I could see it in Lindsay, my wife's eyes. And I'm just like, listen, we, need to mourn this for a moment. And then we just need to turn the job description back on and get back and do it. And just like, I think I mentioned you, finding the right house, you lose a lot of houses along the real estate, journey, and then you end up finding the perfect house,
Well, and to add to that, I would say the old adage is don't fall in love with your house until after you buy it. Right. Same thing. Like you don't know if folks are going to work or not. Yep. And there's a great, because to finish that story, you have hired two really good guys, and I think you said in passing, like, "Hey, we might have come out on the positive side. I really like these guys. They, we don't know, but they could be even better, right, than the one." So, it reminds me of a video. I don't know if you've ever seen the podcast, The Real Ones with John Bernthal. He's the guy that was in. He played like the Punisher on the Netflix series. He's been in a lot of action movies. Yeah. But he has Shia LaBeouf on his podcast. Yeah. And he tells a story about the Chinese farmer. Have you ever heard that?
I don't think so.
So look it up on YouTube if you guys. But it basically is something like the theme is like you can't call it. So there's a old man and his son. This is back 14th century or something, and they're radish farmers, right? And they don't even own the land, so they just turn it over. They sell their radishes every year. They eat what they can. That's it. And so they're out and about, and one day the plow harness breaks and the horse runs off. Okay. So the kid's like, "Oh, Dad, we're screwed. Yeah. I can't plow this field without that horse. Yep. And we can't eat without the field. So we're done. Yep. And his dad's just like, I don't know. I can't call it. Yeah. And he's like, "What's the guy's old man's out to lunch, right? Or what's wrong with him, right?" Yep. And so then he's like, "This guy's nuts. I can't believe it." Well, then a couple of days later, the horse comes over the hill, running back to the house, and there's a whole bunch of horses with him. Oh, geez. So for whatever reason, he's rounded up all these horses, and he's running back to get something to eat. They sense that they're following him back. Yep. He shuts the gate, and he comes inside. He's like, "Unbelievable, best thing ever." We're not selling radishes anymore. We're in the horse business. Right. We're going to domesticate these horses, man. This is going to be amazing, right? Crazy. Which at the time would have been a huge boon for them, right? Yep. So, a couple of days go by, and this guy didn't know shit about horses. He's a radish farmer, right? Yeah. He's out there breaking one of the horses. One of them kicks him in the leg, breaks his leg, right? And, same thing. He goes into his dad, by the way, when the horse is like, "Isn't this amazing?" His dad's like, "I don't know. I can't call it." And he's like, "What's wrong with this guy?" You know what I mean? So then the horse kicks him in the leg and breaks it. Same thing. And all the villagers come around like, "Man, you guys are screwed royally because you have all these horses. You can't train them, right? You can't put radishes on the land now. It's all chewed up." And they're like, you guys are in bad shape. And the dad's like, "I don't know. I can't call it." And a couple of days later, the samurai army comes through, and they're going to fight the Maoists, right? And they're scooping up everybody, all the conscriptions. So they're scooping up everybody in the land, and they roll up and like, "Any young men in your family, we need them, And he's like, "He can't. He's got a broken leg, he's crippled, and he can't go." And so, again, they ride off, and all 8,000 of them, die in this battle. And so the point at the end of it is like, you just can't call it. So you have these two guys, they're on the hook. They're the perfect guys in your mind. Yep. And then they take other jobs, and you're like, "Oh my gosh." But the right mindset is, like you said, is sort of the resilience. He's like, "I don't know. I can't call it yet." And then you get two more guys. They might even be better. Yeah. And then one leaves or one doesn't, or they stay. It's just so many things that come up in entrepreneurship. And that stoic approach to say, like, "You know what, I can't call it. Like, I don't know what the end result of this is going to be," right? Because you don't. And you just, to your point, you take the next step and the next step, and things come out the way they're supposed to. Yeah. And I think, for me, the appreciation, for those, the guys that I hired, at the end of today, day 2, where we got 3 more days left, walk up and I say, "Thank you guys for being here. Thank you for everything that you're doing." To my wife, she got back on the phones, started interviewing, super proud of that. You know what I mean? So you have these moments of fear. And then when you get through it, you gain a new level of appreciation for everything that all the people and all the things that you're doing. If you do that, if you hire, if I'm back at Anytime Fitness and I interview a bunch of people, somebody turns it down. Okay, cool. Next person, it doesn't hit you, like it does when it's your own thing, and maybe it should, right? Like maybe we should feel that way a little bit more when we're working for somebody else, but ultimately human nature is you don't until it's yours. So it really has given me a deep appreciation every step, doing the lease, now we're in the, construction, we're almost done with construction, every step of the way, I become more and more appreciative of all the people that have helped me, all the things that I've learned, and then the people that are coming along on this journey with me. You know what I mean? So yeah, and that's the right mindset. I mean, I think, Casey's here with you at training. Yeah. Yeah. He's, a lot of people talk semi-absentee. I hate that word because it makes it sound like you don't have to do anything. he's really good at methodically hiring and he's a good leader, similar to how you're talking. And I think the most profound thing he ever said to me was he had a really good director named Paul, and he's 3 hours from his facility, so he can't get there very easily.
Yep.
And I was like, so what's the key? Like, how do you do that? How do you lead from afar? And he, you get the software and, transparency, which levers to pull. And you just got to pay attention to it. Right.
Right.
But he's spending a few hours a week on the business. And he says, Paul serves the clients. I serve Paul. It's that simple. I'm like, that's the perfect lens. If you just keep that set of lenses on and it's a filter for every decision you make, you're going to be good. And you've got that in spades already. So that's how you mitigate the fear. It's just like knowledge, basically, right?
Yeah. I mean, knowledge and just knowing that you just have to keep moving forward. And I think that it's a great, great for everything in life. If people lose their jobs, people, pass away, people, a lot of things happen, in life. And all you can do is, take the time to let it sink in, and then you just keep moving forward, Right. So that's what I learned.
It's not like the world stops for you, unfortunately.
For sure. And so it's been a really cool experience, and I'm doing something that I love. I'm doing it with the people that I love, and it's a really rewarding time of my life for sure.
Awesome. Yeah. So what's next? So you've got some alloys, you got 4 alloys coming.
Yeah.
It's about to open your first one.
Yep.
You're doing really good work at Sidekick.
Yeah.
What's up for Cail Morrison in the next 10 years?
I think, I've really fallen in love with what I'm doing at Sidekick, and with the success I'm having comes with opportunity to become a senior advisor. And that, involves me bringing on some staff and kind of more nurturing a team versus just selling franchises. So I'm excited for that opportunity. I need to get there first, but I mean, it's around the corner.
Right?
I can see it. Yeah. And then with Alloy, I think, our goal is to get these 4 open and, really show our kids that we are doing something in the community. We have a tangible thing that we're doing out there, and they can learn leadership. And they, frankly, I think that they're going to learn more from this than they will ever in school. Now,
big time. I know my kids learned a lot from just conversations around business and, and even like for those not listening, like Cail has 3 boys. They're all like super active, really athletic. And it's kind of nice to have like a fitness brand. And our programming, while it's, I'm air quoting, dumbed down for adults, really comes from the tip of the spear athletically. So it really gave my kids a huge advantage in sports.
For sure.
Because they could go to the gym and work out. And, we've got franchisees now, just to give you an idea, they're like, they pay their kids, like employees, to go clean the gyms on the weekends.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's so many opportunities to teach kids about responsibility, entrepreneurship, calculated risk taking, because the general thinking is, and not that there's anything wrong with this, but it's like, you go to school and then you go to college and then you go to work and then you get a better job. And that's a really good path for a lot of people, but it's not the only path.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And I mean, I think that, one of the things to that point is, you always want your kids to have it better than what you had it. Right.
Right.
But at the same time, you also want them to feel struggle, right? Because that's what
makes them better,
right?
Yeah,
and
it's a hard thing to do these days.
It is,
and if you have means, it's hard. You have to work hard to create the struggle,
right? And we all agreed as a family that we were going to take. It was going to take 2 years to get through a certain period of time where we wanted to do investments and invest our money versus spend our money. But the benefits that we're gonna reap from it are going to be greater than they were before. Right. And so we took 2 years of dialing back vacations, dialing back eating out, doing those things. And the reward is, going on a vacation in 2025. So we're setting ourselves up for that. Right. But I think it's a great lesson in that, you have to invest in order to kind of take, you have to take risks in order to get to the other side of things a lot of times. So I think that, this has been a good opportunity for them to learn that. And I think that just like, he said, my one son, he wants to be an architect,
right.
He's 13, but,
sure.
Right now he wants to be an architect. Great. You can go to school and be an architect and stuff like that, but the lessons that he's going to learn between now and then are still going to be super valuable,
100%.
Regardless of what he ends up doing. So I think that we'll grow these 4 locations, and then I think another potential franchise could be there. I think again I'm maybe overly optimistic sometimes and things like that, but again I feel like I've got 2 great employees. I'd love them to carry this brand forward for me, and have opportunity for themselves, and then maybe that gives me an opportunity to do another thing. But ultimately, this whole journey is so that I can get time back, right? It's everybody, I've had a number of people ask me, they're just like, well, what's your end goal? And really my end goal is to get time back. I want to spend more time with my wife, more time with my kids. I want to, I love going out in the mountains and hiking, and we want to do the Colorado Trail, which can be a 2-week, ordeal, so we want to do things, and have experiences and those type of things. So ultimately it just kind of depends on, where I'm at and the time that I may have gotten back, and who knows what could be next. But
well, look, man, we're honored that to be part of that journey for sure. And I look forward to seeing you do it, and hopefully we'll be right there with you the whole way.
Yeah, man, right back at you. It's been, you and I, this has kind of been a buildup of a long time of talking and brainstorming and ideas and should I, shouldn't I, can we, can't we? And it's exciting to be here right now, and wear the hat represent the brand.
Thanks for the hat, by the way. If you guys are watching, it's a pretty dope hat. Yeah, we both.
That's right.
I mean, he wears it better, but whatever. I have a large head. What can I say? But listen, brother, we appreciate you. I know you're here for a couple more days training. You want to go grab some Mexican food?
Let's do it.
All right. Peace, guys.
All right. See you, man.